Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by Jamie McIntyre, senior writer for defense and national security. Jamie, President Biden has a major initiative trying to deal with North Korea. You wrote about it this week in the magazine. Talk a little bit about what his diplomatic outreach to North Korea is and what he's trying to accomplish.
Well, I think the story is really that there hasn't been much activity on the North Korean front since Biden took office. You know, the Pentagon and the State Department made a big deal back in March about going to Secretary Blinken and Secretary Austin, went to Japan and South Korea to consult with our allies, and then there was all this talk they would have a whole new approach to reach out to North Korea diplomatically, and here it is at this point. We haven't seen anything that resembles a policy, and you know, President Biden mentioned North Korea just in passing in his speech to the United Nations, but so far there's been no specifics about what it is they have to offer Kim Jong-un in order to try to get him back talking about denuclearization.
And at the same time, Kim Jong-un has given a speech talking about building an invincible military. It really doesn't look like he has much of an intention of giving up his nukes.
Well, the intelligence community has said all along they don't think that Kim would ever actually give up his nukes because it's the key to his survival of his regime.
Right.
And in his speech, he talked about how he wanted to amass these weapons and in order to deter anyone from attacking him. He portrayed it as purely defensive. And he said his weapons were not aimed at South Korea or the United States. And at the same time, he blamed the United States for stoking tensions on the peninsula. But he's clearly intent on increasing his capability and increasing his nuclear arsenal. He showed no indication at all that he wants to get back into discussions with the U.S. about giving up his nuclear weapons and long-range missiles.
What kind of an arsenal does he have? What kind of weapons are we talking about?
So we've seen a cavalcade of new weaponry and capability demonstrated by North Korea over the past couple of months, especially in the last couple of weeks. We've seen them demonstrate a submarine-launched missile. We've seen them demonstrate a short or longer-range cruise missile, which, by the way, doesn't violate UN resolutions because it's not a ballistic missile. Mm-hmm. And we've also just seen recently North Korea claim that it's developed a hypersonic glide vehicle. This is one of those missiles that can travel anywhere between 5 and 20 times the speed of sound and are maneuverable. And these weapons all have one thing in common. They can all be equipped with nuclear warheads, and they're all designed to thwart U.S. missile defenses.
What are the long-range or even just near-term impact on the Korean Peninsula of sort of this current state of play?
So, you know, the Pentagon never misses a chance to say that its alliance with South Korea is ironclad. In fact, a lot of people may not realize that if the North were, for instance, to attack the South, the United States would be at war immediately. There wouldn't be a big debate about it because under the treaty that's been in place since the end of the Korean War, the U.S. is committed to defend South Korea. In fact, the combined South Korean and U.S. forces are headed up by a 4-star American general. So as North Korea increases its nuclear capability, South Korea is increasing its conventional capability. And with nuclear weapons as a deterrent, there have been some who suggested that perhaps South Korea needs to have its own nuclear deterrent, so it's not relying on the American umbrella, especially with the United States focused so much now on China and the possibility of conflict over Taiwan. But that would be very problematic because, for one thing, it would violate the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and also it would just increase the chances of some sort of nuclear conflict on the peninsula.
Mm-hmm. Former President Trump had to try to deal with this issue in a more high-profile way. Now it's on President Biden's lap.
So Trump's efforts, which he really thought, President Trump really thought he could, you know, use a businessman's argument about the kind of economic benefit that would come from giving up his nukes and his one-on-one relationship with Kim Jong-un. But when Kim did not get any relief from the sanctions, and when the United States walked away from the agreement in Hanoi, Kim became disillusioned, and now he seems to be showing no interest in engaging with the Biden administration, no matter what overtures President Biden makes.
Thank you, Jamie. You can read Jamie's coverage at his daily newsletter, dailyondefense.com.